Good morning, Ines.
Good morning, Tor. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, I'm okay too. Yeah, everything's good. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Yes, absolutely.
We don't have the sunny weather today, do we? That we
Now,
had
I
last
was looking
time.
for God's little light shining on you.
No, there's no light. There's no gold little light shining on me today, I'm afraid. Today it's just grey out there.
Yeah,
Suppose
yeah,
it's just a bit more flat this week, though. Last week
yeah,
at
it
least.
is.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's
Yeah.
okay. It's not as cold as it was.
No, I mean, I haven't been out yet, so I'm not sure, but it does feel milder, doesn't it? Mm.
Well, my phone says I think it's 6 or 7 Celsius.
Oh, really? That's quite, I suppose it's quite
Yeah, it's
warm in
adequate.
Britain. It's quite warm in Britain, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, it is. Plus, with a there's some buds coming out, which is nice.
Oh, really? I haven't noticed that yet.
Haven't you? Oh no,
No.
the bushes and everything else. One of the first things are cherry blossoms, but they have nothing to do with cherries. It
Mm.
just looks like a pink cherry blossom,
Oh,
and they come
nice.
out in the winter, which is
Oh,
really
lovely.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So,
what are we touching on this week, Ines?
well, it's a little bit of a continuation, and I hope that it's sort of be able to be um, listened to without having had to listen to the other podcast as well. But we're moving into slightly different, all a manner of different areas, but they are also closely connected that they needed to be brought together without stopping. And even then, what we do is only a glimpse. I mean, all these subjects are so long, so in depth. I mean, you can actually really have a wonderful seminar with that, chew the fat, get different people's opinions, and so on and so forth. But last week, we did say that some individual spiritual pocket might be more tightly sealed than another person's spiritual pocket. And the question that was asked is, why and how does this occur? So it's very simple, actually. A lot of it comes down to our attitude as well as any experiences, as well as the experience we might have had in our past lives. If we've had a bad or upsetting experience, it doesn't matter what it happens to be, it could easily put us off in the future to do this. And that also is true of the spiritual. And that's why sometimes our spiritual pocket can be sealed until someone helps us to open it again. But karma can also come into play, of course, as the endeavor to open the pocket, to move forward, is a challenge and an experience as well. Our free will, in brackets, which is our attitude, is also important. So if we choose not to delve into our spiritual pocket because we feel it is unnecessary or too time consuming, eventually, if it's right, there will be some occurrence in our life, or someone will come into our life to help us delve into that pocket. Is there anything you feel about that, Tor? I mean, what will happen, usually if we say, just use the word healing, tends to be the last thing we grope to. The doctors write you off, medicine can't do anything more. So the last unknown factor that we can all go to is healing, of course. That means very often that the person needed to experience that healing, and we are brought down to the lowest possible point in our life in order to accept that. And that's when these occurrences occur. It doesn't mean that you have to tiptoe through life. So if we look at free will and we take the rubber band as an analogy, we can pull the rubber band, we can stretch the rubber band, we change the rubber band. But when we let go, what happens is that the rubber band will return to its original size. And we can put that into the same category as our free will. We think that we're able to alter what we're doing or decide where we're going, but only ever on a temporary or limited basis. And then everything has to come back to its original size or shape, which is, of course, the karmic pattern in this case. Or if we take the flexibility of a steel building, the building can stretch, it can bend and breathe, if you like, but not necessarily will it alter its shape, because it will come back to its original shape, the same as karma. Because we are told we have the power of free will, our mind thinks that it does. Now, this is not deviating, but an animal has instinct and a memory. I know we're also classified as animals, but we have the ability to think, to work things out, and also to conquer our thoughts, whereas an animal can't. An animal will have all of its instincts, but not the ability of working it out. For instance, if we were to try to teach our pussycat mathematics, nothing would happen. As humans, we have that extra that formulates within our minds so that we can think, which brings forward the sense of free will, because we then have what one calls choice. So if we move on to the memory, which is all part of all of this, the memory of all time, which moves with the spirit and would then return to another physical body for the period of time it is on earth, and then again would return to the realms of spirit, and so on and so forth. Now, this memory is from, this memory can be from any life force. You can be, I know many people won't agree, but the but is only, will be said, it can be an animal, it can be whatever it is. The memories from any life form that would have been part of our karmic pattern. So the true meaning of life is the memory, our memory, because there's no use leaving the memory with a body. The memory is the essence, it is the core of who and what we are. And when one wants to, and we need to, it is possible to sometimes bring back not only the last memory, but other memories that are impeded into the progression of our thoughts. On a physical basis, once the learning process has taken place in our life, and then it's then stored within the brain, at the time of moving back to spirit, meaning we are dead, it transfers it to the totalness of memory. So we have that memory, which is the path of life, but always in different vehicles. It is just stored. As we said, this is the pocket we're talking about. We can't see the spirit that is close to us, around us, and learning, but we can see the aura, which is the power of the spirit. But because the aura also moves off, we therefore assume that that must be spirit. But contained within the aura is the nucleus of the physical body, which is the kundalini. That is the power. But in spirit, shall we say, it is the memory. And the memory is the instigator and certainly the motivator of that spirit, meaning our spirit, for as example, which is learning and progressing. Who, on a very physical level, awareness, who would choose a life of deprivation, ill health, starvation, abuse, or neglect? Very unlikely. Now, if that karmic choice were not made from the motivation of our spirit, which is neutral, there would and could not be any progression. So there are two paths of karma. One karma is total in itself, and the other is governed by the few years that we have here on earth. But both have to marry up. When they marry up, the progression which is needed for the spirit moves forward that much more quickly and much more easily. So if we have a little leeway in our karmic pattern, it's like the bend in the road of life, or as the tree would bend when the wind comes. If the tree doesn't bend, the tree will break. You can say that we bend with the winds of change. And what has been happening in our world for the past 2.5 years, and now today, this minute, everything has to change And if we look back as far as the history books go, as far as the memory goes, there have always been changes happening, which bring forward a different area, a different concept of ideas, which are then followed up by the physical mind in order to readjust and cope with a new normal. Every area of time is different. We know that. There's always change, and change is usually brought forward by man's mind. And people, I'm not talking about the natural disasters, but usually by man's mind. And who do you think prompts this to happen? The divine force. And if we look at free will again, it is the guiding force, which is a power in itself, but the total power and strength that moves on is the power of the spirit and the memory of our physical life. They are the totalness of everything. Once in the realms of spirit, the memory can still be of a very physical nature, and hold on to and remember other minds, other people, other places and possessions. For example, you might remember you were on a top note, let's say you were king or queen, whatever it is, not the one that got their heads chopped off, or you were a gardener or something like that, something good. It would be the pattern of the thought or memory that would make that spirit hold on to and create its own aura of time and space. That spirit would be disincarnate because it does not have a physical body, but is still on the physical plane of remembering. When a spirit is on the physical plane, it would need a physical sort of application or applicator to release and to help that spiritual mind move through this time and back into its own dimension. So to cut a long story short, rather smoothly, we've moved on to rescues or exorcisms. But it is all good, all positive, not a negative thought in sight. What all of this says, with either somebody being stuck or having to adjust to the new norm, I don't know, should help us to cope. To be that glimmer of light that we're not being punished as such, but it is a natural progression of life.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, I think this knowledge is really interesting to explore. Because just as an example, I was talking to someone yesterday about past life regression. He's around my age, and he was raised a Buddhist in Burma, and he was talking about how the monks at that place had said to him that the reason he's gay now is because he's being punished for a sin in a past life. How awful to tell that to a child, because he was told this, he doesn't believe it now, but he was told that when I was like fuming.
But you know, let's go back to the religion.
Yeah.
Very often they are purported to be higher, more compassionate than us plebs in the West.
Yeah. I mean, when he told me that, I was like fuming.
They have no spiritual insight.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is no, a lot of times, God, I hope they get their own back, goes through my mind.
Yeah.
But to say something like that, thank God has he moved away from that?
Yeah, he's moved away from it. Yeah,
exactly. I think that's terrible.
But it still does something to a mind, you know, if you're told that as a young person, right? Yeah, so it's I think why it's important that we share this type of knowledge, that there is no punishment, there is no sinning, it's because there's a lot of...
And to actually take, accept and really, let's say, accept and, I don't know, be proud of whatever you have been given in this life. There is a reason. There's a very strong reason.
Yeah.
But what is this Buddhist situation, and this is not meant to anything but a comment. But how? Where do they get their learning from? They certainly cannot, with all their ums and and the dongs and the dings, move into themselves. Maybe they're just planning their next meal, or they're so bored on who can we hurt now? Who can we ostracize from our little circle that they walk 10 steps behind?
Yeah.
I thought they were supposed to be a little bit more evolved.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say that every branch of Buddhism teaches that, but definitely a branch of Buddhism teaches that. And that's not very nice.
No, it's not very nice.
It's awful, if anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but it's never meant to depress.
It's only meant to uplift.
Yes. And something to think about.
Yeah. Food for thought.
And then, and then form your own viewpoints.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Oh. Okay.
Well, thank you, Ines, for
another
week. And we will be back here again. We will be back here again next week.
Yes, absolutely. And any questions?
Bring them along.
Yeah, bring them along. Or again, if you say, oh, you're talking a lot of rubbish, good. Bring it forward.
Tell us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Take care.